بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Brothers, welcome back to our sessions. I think we had a good break during the end of year. So now we're continuing the subject of Nun Sakin and Tanween. And today we got to the subject of Al-Ikhfa. But before that, I'm gonna do just a quick recap. So if you remember, we said there are four rules for the meme for the Nun Sakina. Um, the first one is the idhar, where you make the noon very clear. You recite the noon clearly, and that's with these six letters: hamza, ha, ainun, ha, ghainun, kha, the throat letters. Um, then we have another group of letters, which is the word yarmulun, broken down into two groups: yanmu and lam and ra. All of these we do what we call the idgham. Idgham means the noon gets merged with the letters after it. Now there are two types of it. The lam and ra do idgham without ghunna, right? So it becomes what we call a perfect idgham. This is a perfect or complete idgham. The other letters, the ya, waw, mim, nun. The mim and nun we also do perfect complete idgham. And the ya and waw we call it incomplete idgham. What do we mean by incomplete idgham? We mean that the part of the ya and part of the waw with part of the noon is merging together, right? While in the case of the lam and the ra and the mim and the noon, it's a full merging. So the noon sakina or the tanween sakin or the tanween, sorry, um, the noon of the tanween, which is sakina, there's nothing left out of it when they are merged with these, except with the ya and waw, where you still have the nasal part of the noon sakina and the tanween merging with the ya and the waw, right? So the example we had in the quiz was the word men, يعمل. It becomes من يعمل, من يعمل. So what I'm doing is 50% of the sound is coming from the mouth, which is the ya, the other 50% from the nose. من يعمل, right? That's how you test it. If you say من يعمل, that's a complete idgham, which is not the case for these two letters, the ya and the waw. Um, the ba obviously is a separate case. We do qalb with it because we cannot do idgham and we cannot do idhar. It's difficult both ways. So that's why we're doing the qalb, whereby the noon sakina gets flipped to a meme and then the meme interacts with the ba. Today's subject, inshallah, is the subject of ikhfa. Now, what does ikhfa mean? And that's actually starting from page number uh, page number page number 146 in the book, the second half of the page. The definition, the linguistic definition, is the noun have already been mentioned in page 131. So quickly go to page 131 and talk about the ikhfa. So the English version is actually in page 130, right? And linguistically it means hiding the letter. However, the applied definition, it's a pronouncing the letter with a characteristic between idhar and idgham. So it's not idhar, it's not idgham. It's between idhar and idgham, um, stripped of any shadda, because if there is shadda on it, that means it's idgham. With a ghunna remaining on the first letter, that's remaining from the first letter, right? So the example of it is in 15 letters with the letter nun. Noon sakina and tanween. These 15 letters are grouped in this sentence, which is coming from the Tuhfatul Atfal poem from Al-Jamzuri. So if you take the first letter of each word, these are the 15 letters. صف ذا ثنا كم جاد شخص قد سما دم طيبا زد في تقى ضع ظالمة. So if you take the first letters, there will be the table in page 147. So the table in page 147, that's a one which we're going to spend a little bit of time on it, so we can read the examples from the book or from the slide pack. Same thing. But before that, we just want to talk about the some of the rules which are on page 148, page 149, before we actually go through the examples. So page 148, the top part of it, that is comparing إخفاء with the إظهار and إدغام. Remember in the definition, we said it's a state between, it's a state in between إظهار and the إدغام, right? So what is that? So this table is comparing the إظهار, the إخفاء and the إدغام of the نون ساكن and تنوين from two angles. The first angle is what happens with the tongue, part of the noon. And the second part is the second aspect is the nasal cavity part, the ghunna of the noon. Right? So we have the noon sakina and tanween, which its articulation point is 50-50 between the nose and the mouth. So with the idhar, what happens is both of them are present because we are pronouncing the noon completely. So its nasal part and its mouth part are both present. So that's the case of idhar. If you take the case of idgham, which is the third case in the table, and in this case he's talking specifically about the complete idgham, right? The complete idgham as in mir rabbihim, mir rabbihim. You see when I say mir rabbihim, the nasal part and the tongue part of the noon both disappear. The noon is completely gone, right? So that is what happens with the idgham. The ikhfa is a state in between. The mouth part is gone, the nasal part is still there, right? So if you can see here, the nasal part, the ikhfa is in a way very, very similar to the idgham naqas, to the incomplete idgham. And even we'll see inshallah shortly, the way it's written in the Mus'haf is very similar as well between the two. Not to be confused, one is idgham, one is ikhfa. But they are very similar from the way you articulate them, and they are very similar in terms of the way it's written in the Mus'haf. So what happens when we do ikhfa? One of the common mistakes many people have is they do the ikhfa the same way for all letters, right? So they come and say فانصب منذر منثورا عنك. You see these people, they have one basically version of ikhfa, and they take this and apply it everywhere. Now that's definitely not the case. So inshallah, this is going to be most of the session today we're going to be focused on that because it's a very, very tricky matter. The first thing that you do with the ikhfa, as per the book, it says that you have to prepare the mouth for the articulation point of the next letter. The next letter is the letter after the noon, right? The letter after the noon. Now on this one, I want to share with you something. It's actually the next page, which is basically the reason why we're going for the next letter. You see this poem, there's a poem from Sheikh, his name is Samanudi. He's saying, the red part of it is saying, وَتَتْبَعُ الْأَلِفْ مَا قَبْلَهَا وَالْعَكْسُ فِي الْغَنِّ أُلِفْ. Right? وَالرَّوْمُ كَالْوَصْلِ وَتَتْبَعُ الْأَلِفْ ما قبلها والعكس في الغن ألف. So what it means is the alif, if you remember from the ruling of tafkhim and tarqiq, we said that the alif normally follows the letter before it. So if the letter before it is heavy, then we make heaviness for the alif. The noon, or the ghunna, sorry, it's the opposite, right? For the ghunna, it follows the letter which comes after it. That's why knowing the articulation point of the letter which comes after the ghunna, after the ikhfa, is very important because it impacts the way we pronounce the ghunna itself, right? That's why we have different versions of the ghunna. So the first thing is you get your mouth ready on the next letter. Then, at the same time, accompanying it by a completely prolonged غنة from the nasal cavity. Now, this type of غنة, inshallah, we'll study it in the next section. This is the what we call a complete غنة. This is complete غنة. Not the most complete, which is with the noon مشددة and ميم مشددة, but this is a complete غنة in terms of duration. So it's a good healthy غنة. It's also accompanied by a hint of a sound from the mouth due to not closing the articulation point of the noon, the tongue part, because the tongue part is not there, we said. So we only have the nasal. Now your mouth is ready on the next articulation point. So what happens is there is a nasal part coming and there is a slight hint of a sound coming from the mouth. Except with two letters, which is the qaf and the kaf. These two letters are special because there is a complete closure on them when you pronounce them with ikhfa. These two letters, the qaf and the kaf. With every other letter, that is not the case. There is still an opening where there is some sound, some form of sound coming from the mouth, right? So with that, we're gonna talk about a couple of things. The first thing is this type of ikhfa, not to be confused with the ikhfa that happens with the meme. We call this one that ikhfa haqiqi. Haqiqi means true ikhfa. While the ikhfa that happens with the meme, which is with the ba, we call that ikhfa shafwi. Why shafwi? Because it happens on a lip level, while this one is actually a true ikhfa, where you are hiding half of the letter, which is the noon, and only keeping the nasal part, right? There are specific different levels for the letters. So we said the qaf and the kaf special. There's also another special case, which is the ta, the dal, and the ta. These three letters, the articulation point is very close to the noon. And if you do exactly what the rule says, it will be adhar as well for them, right? So we need to be very careful with these ones. Now I'll take the examples, inshallah, and we'll see how it goes. The sad, there are two types, of course. There's a type of ikhfa where it's in the same word, and there's a type of ikhfa which is in two words. And there's also types of ikhfa which is with the tanween as well. Different to the idgham. If you remember from the idgham, we said we cannot do the idgham in the same word because it will confuse the meaning, right? And we said the examples are four words in the whole Quran. The word dunya and bunyan, whenever they come, and the words sinwan and qinwan, which happens to come once in the Quran. These words, because the nun sakina with the idgham letter are coming on the same word, we shouldn't do idgham with them. The ikhfa, however, is different. The ikhfa could be anywhere in wherever there is a nun sakina and there is a letter after it. So whenever the rule applies, you do the ikhfa. Before I do the examples, just want to mention one thing and then open up for questions. So the reason we do this ikhfa, look, this ikhfa is not something that is unique to the tajweed or the Quran. It's a common sense Arabic language construct. If I actually don't do a lengthening gunna on it, like if I say the word with the dal mundir, right? If I just naturally say it in Arabic, it will be mundir, right? It won't be mundir. Nobody say that. It's too difficult to pronounce. And nobody say muddir. So it's naturally said as mundir. The only difference we have compared to the Quran, which is something that we studied way early in the program, we said there are four things, if you remember them, that are unique to the Quran, which are not necessarily specific to the Quran, specific to Arabic language. Everything else is Arabic language, apart from these four. One of them was the lengthening of the ghunna, right? So instead of mundir, you say mundir, mundir, right? So the only thing you did differently is you made that ghunna, the nasal part, slightly longer. Apart from that, if you don't do the lengthening of the ghunna, it will still be ikhfa. It will still be إخفاء and it will be منذر. And that is actually my advice to all of you. Inshallah, if you want to practice on the ghunna, instead of remembering the rules and stuff, which you will have to, but initially, start practicing it as a short pronunciation and then making it longer, right? Any letter that you struggle with, because when you make it longer, things get confusing. So just pronounce it quick first, and then try to make it longer and see how it works with you, inshallah. So, but before I go through the examples, I thought just to pause here and take some questions, brothers. Anyone? Just want to make sure that we all understand this very nicely, very well. Is it really good? I'm happy, like if everyone understands this well, then we can proceed, inshallah. Could you repeat which page we are on? So we the ikhfa starts from page 146 onwards. So initially we did page 146, then we did page 148. Page 147 is the examples which we will do now, inshallah. So I can start with the examples. Let's start. I think I'll start with the book, inshallah. So we'll do the examples from the book. It's the same thing, anyways. So if you open your book, page 147, the first example, حرف الصاد. The first word is منصورة. So what I did, I went for the articulation point of the صاد. Now the صاد is حرف صفير. The articulation point is where it's the lower incisors, right? So the tongue with the lower incisors, and there is heaviness to it, which means you have to prepare your tongue on a heavy غنة. That's why it's منصورة, منصورة, right? I'm ready on the صاد, so by the time the غنة is finished, I immediately say the صاد. منصورة, right? Don't do the mistake of people saying منصورة, right? No, it's natural. You're going for the صاد, you're already on the صاد, waiting for the غنة to finish, and then starting with the صاد. بريح صرصر, بريح صرصر. You see, صرصر, all of the letters are elevated, heavy letters. The صاد is one of the easy examples, right? Because it's the heaviness is there. The next one is the حرف الذال. حرف الذال, the articulation point of the ذال is أذ, right? Is the tip of the tongue with the tip of the upper incisors. So you say تنذرهم, تنذرهم. You see, I'm already on the ذال with the غنة. تنذرهم, تنذرهم. عزيز ذو انتقام, عزيز ذو انتقام. Now here انتقام is a different case. We'll study that in the ta case, which is the third from the bottom. What's happening here is obviously the غنة is lowered. غنة is a light غنة. The third example is حرف الثاء. حرف الثاء is from the same articulation point of the ذال, and it's also lowered letter. So pretty much very similar case. والأنثى, والأنثى, أنثى. Don't keep the ضمة on the noon when you say the والأنثى. You see what happens here? The noon, the غنة becomes heavy because you kept the ضمة of the الأو, الأو. It has to be الأو, and then you go to light nasal, ready on the ثاء. الأو, like this. الأنثى, ماء ثجاجا, ماء ثجاجا. حرف الكاف, we said it's the kaf and the qaf, they are special cases. Now, why are they special cases? Because if I hit the articulation point, then I am almost pronouncing harf al-nun, right? So that's why it's very close to idhar. The first example is the word minkum, minkum. My tongue is already on the articulation point of the kaf, right? So it's the tongue which is hitting the area between the soft and the hard palate. منكم, while the qaf is only on the soft palate. منق, right? We'll get to this inshallah. So one of the common mistakes, and you see I have put this special comment here for the harf kaf, is some people say منكم, منكم, as in it becomes mim ya nun kaf. It doesn't have to be like this. It's just a small kasra on the mim, and then you go for the nasal part of the noon, putting your mouth on the articulation point of the kaf at the same time, which is lowered. So it becomes minkum, minkum, kiraman katibin, kiraman katibin. That's how you do the ikhfa for the kaf. I will do the jim and we'll pause for more questions, inshallah. حرف الجيم, very simple. So you say أن جاءه, أن جاءه, عين جارية, عين جارية. The ghunna here is lowered ghunna, and then you're already on the articulation point of the jim. Any questions so far, brothers? Is it all smooth, easy? No
Yeah.
red flags?
Just one quick question.
Yes, brother.
How long should the nasalization be? So how long should we wait for the
Yeah,
nasalization?
Jazakallah khair. So that's very good question. So obviously there's a subject on it after the ikhfa, but we have four levels of ghunna, four levels of ghunna, and these has to be consistent across all of your recitation. The most complete ghunna, which is when they have noon shadda, mim shadda, then this comes next, which means it has to be a little bit less than if you have noon shadda or mim shadda, and it has to be higher than if you have the other cases of the lengthening of the ghunna, right? Which is the idhar next, and then you have the last part, which is the noon mutaharrika. So noon fatha, noon dhamma, noon kasra, because it has a natural, original nasal part in it. So it has to be consistent with the others. You can't make it longer in other places. Now, the thing which I'm not gonna say is the harakat, right? Because the haraka is only a measure of med. It's not a measure of the ghunna. So that's why we don't measure the ghunna. We say one haraka, two haraka. We don't use that. But we say it's basically it's the second level of ghunna. It is a complete ghunna, which has to be consistent across all of your recitation. And it's very similar to the speed that I just said. Yani, that's how I got it from my sheikh. Jazakumullah khair. Shall I go for the next one? حرف الشين and حرف الجيم and حرف الياء are from the same articulation point. So very similar. من شيء, شيء شهيد. Now حرف القاف, we said very similar to al-kaf. These two letters, qaf and kaf, they are as close as possible to idhar. The difference between the qaf and the kaf is that the qaf is a heavy letter, is elevated letter. So in this case, you say من قبل, من قبل, شيء قدير, شيء قدير. So I'm already making إظهار as if I'm saying شيء, but I'm not saying noon. I'm saying شيء قا. So my tongue is actually closing the mouth part as if it's a noon, but not from the same articulation point of the noon. It's actually from the articulation point of the qaf. And I'm also making the shape of the tongue with the epiglottis shape that is for prepared for heavy letter. So that's why it becomes شيء قدير. We'll go for حرف السين. حرف السين is from the same articulation point as the صاد and the زاي, but it is a lowered letter. So it becomes الإنسان. الإنسان. خمسة سادسهم. Then حرف الدال. Now we said حرف الدال and the ta and the ta are very special cases. Why is that? Let me first pronounce the dal as if I'm doing the ruling as is. And this is a disclaimer. This is a wrong pronunciation. So if I say min dun, min dun, or if I say with a ta, عن طبق, عن طبق. What's happening here is the articulation point of these letters are the tongue touching the gum area above the upper incisors. And that's a very dangerous area because it's very, very close to the noon. So what the scholars say, instead of that, you come very close to that articulation point area, but don't touch it. Don't touch it, just very close, right? So now I'm gonna do the right pronunciation. من دون. من دون. I'm almost there. I'm not touching it. Getting closer. Now you could hear the nasal part. You can hear some sound from the mouth, but you can't hear a noon. You can't hear a clear noon. وكأسا دهاقا. وكأسا دهاقا. If I do the wrong way, it becomes وكأسا دهاقا. You see the difference, right? كأسا دي, that's wrong. كأسا دي, that's the right pronunciation. Same thing applies on the ta, except that the ta is elevated and heavy. So you have to say عن طبق. عن طبق. عن طبق. كشجرة طيبة. كشجرة طيبة. One of the things that's happening here, which is very important, many people miss it, is that when we're doing this إخفاء, there is still part of the original حركة on the first letter that has to be pronounced. So I don't say كشجرة طا. كشجرة طا. There's a كسرة on the شجرتي. كشجرة طا. كشجرة طا. Right? So you have to keep that little bit of كسرة on the original letter for إعراب reasons. You can't just say كشجرة طا. It's not just غنة. There is the letter before it. Give it its time. Keep that original كسرة and then go for the إخفاء of the noon, which is heavy إخفاء, and then you pronounce the ta after that. Before we do the last 5 letters, pause for more questions. Anything controversial, anything that you guys were not aware of before that you just came to know now? Well, that's good. So we'll do حرف الزاي. حرف الزاي is from the same place as the sin and the صاد. المنزلون. نفسا زكية. حرف الفاء. أنفسكم. أنفسكم. You see my lips are already ready on the fa. أنفسكم. تبعا فهل. تبعا فهل. Now حرف التاء is one of the 3 cases, special cases, the same as the dal and the ta. In this one, we have examples like من تفاوت من تفاوت حلية تلبسونها you see the yeah, there's the ta, there's fatha on the ta, then there's the ikhfa, then there's the ta. So you have to keep that fatha. حلية تلبسونها. And the famous example, which is the word kuntum, that's a famous example because there's a dhamma before the noon, and it becomes very tricky to pronounce it to the point that many people make it sound like as a wow, which is a common mistake. So it's not kun, it's not kun, don't overdo it, right? It's just natural. كنتم خير كنتم, that's it, right? Don't keep pressing the dhamma on the kaf. حرف الضاد, that's a heavy letter. Same thing with حرف الضاء. So it becomes منضود منضود من ضريع قسمة ضيزى. heavy غنة. انظر ينظرون قرى ظاهرة قرى ظاهرة ظلا ظليلا ظلا ظليلا. You get ready for the next letter. Do the غنة and make it heavy or light as needed. That's why if you go to the next page number 149, and the line which of the poem which I quoted from a Sheikh al-Samanudi, where he is basically talking about that the reason why we have to follow basically the letter, um, so on the alif, you follow the letter before it, where it becomes if it's a heavy letter, then the alif becomes heavy, as in the word قال. And if the letter before it is lowered, then it becomes lowered, as in the word سارة. In the ghunna is the opposite, right? So we have the letters طاء طاء ضاد, basically all of the حروف الاستعلاء, right? خص ضغط قض, all of these, then you have the ghunna becomes heavy. And on the other letters, which is the dal, tha, kaf, jim, shin, etc., the ghunna becomes lowered, ghunna. Last topic for today, inshallah, before we move to the subject of mudud, is the lengthening of the ghunna. Oh, sorry. No, that's not the last. Let's go to the book first. So on the book, page number 150, in page 150, it says that the sign of the ikhfa in the Quran is that the noon itself has no haraka, and the letter after it doesn't have shadda and it has haraka. So that is very similar to the idgham naqs. In the case of tanween, it's different from the idhar. You remember the idhar, the lines were parallel to each other. So if there's no distance between the lines, they will be exactly the same. In this case, no, the lines are superseding. One is longer than the other. In the case of تنوين الفتح تنوين الكسر ماء ثجاج شيء شهيد. In the case of the تنوين الضم, you have two waws. In the case of إظهار, it used to be a dhamma with a inverted nun on top of it. So the common mistakes that happens when you do the letters of idgham, qalb, and ikhfa, sorry, the ikhfa compared to the others, is that making them clear at these letters, right? So the same case with the idgham, same case with the qalb, making idhar on these letters is a common mistake. The second common mistake is merging them into the waw and the ya without ghunna, which is acceptable in other chains of narration, but in the qira'ah of Imam Hafs and Asim from the way of Shatibiya, it is idgham naqas, right? The third case is keeping a gap between the lips when you do the qalb, similar to the ikhfa shifawi with the mim. The fourth common mistake is giving the mouth one shape for all letters with ikhfa. The one that I started with, actually, I prefaced with. That's a common mistake. The other one is prolonging the ghunna longer than necessary. It has to be within the لفظ في نظيره كمثله. It has to be consistent with all of the other places when you read, and it's also consistent with the other longer and shorter ghunnas. And the last common mistake is making ikhfa, concealment, for the letters kha and ghain, right? Which is also an acceptable recitation from the way of Imam Abu Ja'far. But in the qira'ah of Imam Hafs and Asim, in these two letters, it's idhar. So our last slide for today, inshallah, page 152. So that's the duration of the ghunnas, the one that Dr. Fahim asked for. And that would be the last subject before we go for al-mudud, which is page 54, inshallah, for next week. So in terms of the duration of the ghunna, we have four levels for that. Four levels of the ghunna. The highest level of ghunna is when you have noon with shadda, mim with shadda. Also, it happens to be in the idgham cases as well. So, which means even the incomplete idgham, in the case of the ya and the waw, is also included in this case, right? Because although it's not a complete idgham, it's still idgham, which means the length of the ghunna should be the same as the others. The only difference between this type of idgham and other idghams is that there is a little bit of the first letter coming in. So the examples we have in the book: ولكن الله سلم في اليم ولا تخافي فمن يعمل ما لهم من الله. So you see the length was exactly the same for all of them, right? And that's the highest level of the ghunna. The second highest level of ghunna is the one we just finished, the ikhfa. And that's the ikhfa with the mim and the ikhfa with the noon, because with the mim we also have the nasal part. So the examples we have: الإنسان أم بورك ترميهم بحجارة. So you see, it's a very natural ghunna. It's long, but it's not as long as the first one, and it's not short. So I could still detect it. The third one is actually in the case of the noon mim with sukoon. That's the case of idhar, right? سميع عليم, سميع عليم. That's it, right? أنعمت, أنعمت. Both noon and mim, same. هم فيها. And the last one is the most incomplete, the shortest one, which is the natural one that happens with the mim fatha, noon fatha, mim kasra, noon kasra, mim dhamma, noon dhamma. The example is a whole ayah where we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cases, right? قل بئس ما, you see, ma, there is a nasal part, that's it. How I know? If I close my nose. بئس ما, بئس ما, the ma becomes ba. And the last one is saying that the proportion among the durations of the ghunnas remains realized, whatever the speed of reading might be. whether it is تحقيق, تدوير, or حذر. The definitions of the mentioned speeds of recitation have been stated previously on page 22. All right. So I think with that we finished, alhamdulillah, very important subjects. Yani. After the mudud, there's not much left. So we only have maybe, the waqf al-ibtida and some special cases. So I'll stop here for today, open up for further questions, and then we should be able to finish, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum, Ustad.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Question about uh, ikhfa.
Yes.
So, maybe you have any suggestion for uh, if we have any students who are struggling to differentiate between the sound of one letter with another letter in ikhfa, like where to start? Like, should I just focus on like one letter, like make it correct, or like should they focus on, let's say, differentiate between light and heavy sound, or do you have any
Yeah.
tips?
Jazakallah khair. But that's why I spend a little bit extra time on this one compared to other subjects because it's the important thing is that us as teachers, inshallah, that we understand at least uh, what are the differences between these levels and the different types of ghunna. Now, teaching it for students, the best way I actually found out is that not making it long first and then making it long next. They naturally come to the exact pronunciation without doing that. So if we go back, let's say, um, let's take the word al-insan, right? What I normally do, I say pronounce this quickly. Don't make the long gunna, right? It becomes al-insan, al-insan, naturally, right? Does anyone of you guys pronounce it differently than that? If you do it quickly, or is it just me? Can you open up your mic and tell me if it's different? Yeah, so that's how I start. They do it, they say it fast, they say al-insan, al-insan, and I'm like, okay, just make it longer now. Then they will go like al-insan. And that's it, you're done. Perfect. Right. If you say the
Okay.
word with a kaf, let's say, right? Let's say minkum. They will just say minkum naturally. Naturally, they will do the ikhfa perfectly. The only problem they have is they are focusing on the length first. So if
Yeah.
first they need to say minkum, 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 they say minkum. That's perfect. Right. So that's how I cheat for it, and it
Yeah.
worked magically with
Okay.
people. Yeah.
Okay. Jazakallah, inshallah. We'll try that
And,
tips.
try
Jazakallah
it.
khair.
Let me know how it works.
Usad, quick question.
Well,
Is it okay to say that the itbaq letters and the qaf are the only times when the ikhfa would be the most thickest?
no, it's not just that. The kaf is actually not. Oh, the qaf you said.
Yes, the qaf.
Yeah, yeah. So it's all of it's خص ضغط تنقض apart from the kha because the kha and the ghain are in the idhar, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's sad, dad, ta, va, and qaf. So it's your comment is yes. Yeah. So you're saying إطباق letters
Yes.
صاد وضاد طاء وضاء with a qaf. Yes,
Okay. Alhamdulillah.
pretty much, yeah. Now, can anyone tell me what about the ra? Why not the ra becomes heavy? Or the alif? Because the ra and the alif could be heavy sometimes, right? So why not the ra and the alif are on the table? You get 2 points for that, brothers. She answer.
Is it because they aren't letters of ikhfa?
Exactly. So the ra is a idgham letter. It's complete idgham. So if it comes after the noon becomes min rabbihim. Now what about the alif? Brother, you can get the 2 points if you answer that, brother. You got only one now. Simple answer, but it never happens. So the alif with sukun, alif is always with sukun, right? Alif doesn't come with a fatha or a kasra or dhamma. It's always sakin. And noon sakina before it, now you have noon sakina, alif sakin, it never happens. Right? So that's why we have actually cases. We have cases where there is let's find an example here. Give me 1 second. You're gonna love this one. Oh, yeah, shit. اجتثت. The word before اجتثت. Yeah. خبيثة اجتثت. Right? In this case, you don't pronounce it. You don't say خبيثة اجتثت. What you say is you add a kasra after the tanween. So that the noon sakina of the tanween of خبيثة اجتثت. Yeah? So you add a kasra on tanween on that one. Or the same case in the word منيبين دخولوها. منيب, the end of the ayah. ودخولوها is the next ayah. If you continue, it becomes منيبين نيد. يعني after the noon sakin of the tanween, you add a kasra. Right? That's the extra stuff. But what I'm saying is there is no case where there is a noon sakina and the alif after it. That's why the alif was not touched in the subject of noon sakina and tanween, because it's irrelevant. It never happens. That's good questions, brothers. Any more before we close, inshallah? Leave the rest for practice, inshallah, on the groups. And with that, we'll close off, inshallah. So, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله
السلام ورحمة
وبركاته.
الله وبركاته.
وبركاته.
السلام ورحمة الله.